I'm Victor Margiotta, and this is the Community Show. Don't ask me how I was able to get the mayor of Peekskill, but he's here. I have Frank Catalina. He's going to talk about what he's doing in Peekskill, some of the programs, and my favorite thing, how people are going to get involved. So thanks so much, Frank.
Thank you very much. I'm not that hard to get a hold of, am I?
No.
All right.
All right. So, you know, my important thing is family, and I think that's the most important thing. It is the cornerstone of the community. And tell us a little about yourself, where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Peekskill, and
Okay.
you're absolutely right. Family is everything. I grew up in Peekskill High School,
Yes.
and Assumption School,
Okay.
elementary, Peekskill High School,
Wow.
class of '75. I went locally, Mercy College in Dobbs
Okay.
Ferry, and then I went on to University of Bridgeport Law School, which is now Quinnipiac Law School. So that's basically my educational background.
Right. My father was a very big influence in my life. We grew up in a family business in Verplank, and to this day, he still is a big part of my life. And why don't you talk about your father?
My dad passed away 7 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I guess everybody should have a father who's important in their life.
Yeah.
You know, my parents were divorced, but my dad stayed in close touch with us. He exercised his visitation every other weekend,
Yeah.
and made sure that he was there for us when we needed it.
Yeah.
And I think we all, you know, we kind of didn't get in trouble during the week because we knew Dad was coming on the
Yeah,
weekends.
yeah.
And but it was he was a hands-on father, and I miss him very much.
Yeah, I know, that is so important. And family is number one as far as I'm concerned. What helped in your decision to go into law?
When I was going to college, at the time, I graduated high school in '75.
Okay.
So I was in the late '70s when I was in Mercy College, and President Carter had what he called the LEAP program, the LEEP, the Law Enforcement Educational Program, where it was a program by the federal government to get law enforcement people, police officers, back to get their college degrees. And every police officer I met who was back in college hated their job. And so my future career in law enforcement, I did a second thought on that.
Right.
But I did love the law, and I loved law enforcement,
Yeah.
so it was a natural progression just to jump into law school.
Oh, that's awesome. And did you go right into your own practice, or did you?
No, I got out of law school, and I worked for Hirsch and Hirsch, Ben Hirsch,
Yeah.
and famous lawyer in Peekskill.
Yeah.
And I worked for his family law firm for 2 years,
Right.
almost exactly 2 years, and then I went on my own.
Cool.
And Ben Hirsch was a big influence on my life. He was a great lawyer, great man. Taught me it's more about giving back to the community,
Yeah.
because we take from the community and we live on people's problems, so therefore we should always give back to the community.
Yeah.
And even after I left the firm, Mr. Hirsch always gave me a lot of cases, made sure I had work to do, made sure I didn't miss a meal.
Yeah.
And he was a big influence on my life.
That's funny because he was part of my family's life too. He helped out my parents also.
I don't know that in that era, from 1950 right up to 2000, that 50-year period, I don't think there's anybody whose lives he didn't touch in one way or another.
Wow, that's incredible.
Directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
And he was just a great man, and you know,
Awesome.
he's a surrogate father to me, and I miss him too.
Excellent. All right, what made you decide to run for mayor?
Well, I practice law here every day. I represent business people, I represent individuals, and it just became increasingly difficult to get things done. You know, no new businesses were coming into town, or at a very slow rate. No new buildings were built in the 6 years under the prior mayor.
Right.
One new building, the Walgreens drugstore on the corner of Main and Broad Street, not far from the studio. And you know, any city to gauge its health, its financial health, you have to have a steady stream of growth. I'm doing my State of the City address next Monday, April 27th at 7 o'clock at City Hall, and where I'm going to outline where we came from in those economic times. But total assessed valuation in a city should grow 3 to 5% every year just to keep pace with everything.
Okay.
All of your contracts with your civil service employees, just in the natural increase in prices for everything from equipment to salt for the roads, just to pick up garbage. These trucks cost $150,000 or more, so you need 3 to 5% growth in your assessed valuation every year. In the city of Peekskill, we have shrunk.
Right.
7 years in a row.
Wow.
Shrinkage. So our tax base is getting smaller and smaller while our budgets get bigger and bigger.
Right.
And just the pressure on the budget, just from the shrinkage, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is there's no new development, new private money. Now people can look and say, well, you know, there's a new park here down at the riverfront, or there's a new stoplights and new sidewalks, but no new growth.
Yeah.
So my plan is to expand the economic base of the city of Peekskill by bringing in new private investment in the city and expand that tax base.
Right.
And that's what I'm about, and that's what I'm going to do. And if people don't like it, they can vote me out, and if people
Yeah,
like it, they
exactly.
can keep me in.
Yeah.
But I am headstrong, and that's what I'm doing. I saw the problem as mayor. I saw the problem as a lawyer representing clients. When it takes 2 years to put a doghouse in your backyard, through the planning board, the zoning board, the architectural review board, the color review board, the materials review board, then there's something's wrong with your city. It's not something's wrong with investors that don't want to come here.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with your city. We had the Hudson Room open up under my watch, and Lou Lanza bought that building in February.
I remember that.
February of 2014, the month after I took office, and he had that place open by July in time for the music concert downtown. And that's because we went in and said, these buildings, these are uses, potential uses of buildings that don't need a lot of planning and zoning. Get out of the way. Don't make City Hall be an obstacle.
Right.
Make City Hall be the grease path that lets these projects take off.
Exactly.
When somebody comes in and they own property, and your family's been in Verplank for a long time.
Yes.
So if your family came in and they want to do something with their property that they've owned, that they've paid taxes on for generation after generation, or year after year, who's the city to say, well, we don't like that use.
Yeah.
We don't like a dog hospital there, a veterinarian clinic. We want a ice cream parlor. I mean, so there is a need for zoning.
Yep.
There is a need to enforce the code as existing, but there is not a need, in my opinion, to have the government overbearing and telling you not only how your building should look, but what you can do with it.
Yeah.
And that's where I differ, I think, from the prior administration, and that's why we have so much new development going on in the city right now.
Excellent. So you are going to run again?
I haven't formally announced yet.
All right.
I can't formally announce because
Okay.
there's some legal things that would happen, especially with the Board of Elections. But let's just say I'm thinking very seriously about it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, what's the best part about being mayor?
The best part about being
Yeah.
mayor is being on your show.
Okay.
The best part about being mayor is kissing babies, and
Yeah.
cutting ribbons,
Yeah.
and meeting people, and
Well, I just saw you at the opening day for the Little League. That's
opening
something.
day for the Little League.
That's awesome.
I'm a bachelor, so I get to meet a lot of people out there in the community,
Yep.
and so it's the social end of it is
Yeah.
you just can't. You can't express it. And I've lived in this community all my life,
Yeah.
and just I walked around my whole life being a nobody.
Yeah.
And now I can't walk into a deli and
Yeah.
oh, mayor this, mayor that, and
Yeah.
a lot of people tell me their problems, but most of the time, it's hard to pay for a drink. It's difficult to pay for a meal, but I do because I don't want to
Yeah.
run afoul of the ethics
Yeah,
code.
right.
But it's just that kind of appreciation that
that's
people
great,
know
though.
you're out there working for them,
Sure.
and they really appreciate it, and
Definitely.
it means so much to me to be a part of my community.
Okay, that's the best. And then the other end of the spectrum, what's the worst part about being mayor?
Well, the opposing party, of course.
Yeah.
There's a political end of this job that is a fact of life. I don't really consider this to be a political job. I'm not a politician. I was the city attorney for many years. I'm a lawyer.
Right.
So 20 or 30 years from now, when people say, Frank Catalina, have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
I would like people to say, yeah, he was a good lawyer. He was fair. He tried to do the right thing by his clients, and
Sure.
and the cases that he represented. He served as a lawyer with integrity. I don't really want to be known as the mayor. I mean, that's a political thing, and what we do on the local level isn't Republican or Democrat. There's no Republican or Democratic garbage or Republican or Democratic snow that has to be picked up. People want their snow picked up.
Yep.
When they get ready, when they get out of bed on a cold day, they want the streets clear
want
so
the
they can
job
get to
done.
work. And when it comes on Tuesday or Thursday or Wednesday, they want their garbage picked up, as it should be. And when they turn that faucet on, they want clean water to drink. And when they get in a problem, they want to call the police, and they want police to show up who are equipped and ready to handle their problems. if they have a problem, smoke or fire, they want a fire department that's fully equipped and fully staffed, and they don't want to hear about it. The Republicans wouldn't give me this budget, or the Democrats were biting my back. That's nonsense, and it's excuses. So I don't view, on the local level, this job as a Republican or a Democratic job. But of course, there are Democrats and Republicans, and the natural friction that there always has to be a one-upsmanship, and the people that come into the council and come into the room bringing their politics on their sleeve, and taking cheap shots. And I have very thin skin, so they tell me he's a bully at City Hall. He has a temper. You're damn right I have a temper. And you call me a liar, I'm going to jump on you. And I don't have the temperament of a politician because I'm not a politician. So that's the toughest part for me is those kind, the political jabs, and the nitpicking and everything else. But for the most part, people know it when they see it, and I get kudos and pats on the back to put up with them, give them hell. They give them hell attitude, and that's what I do. I mean, I want to work with people. I want to do serious work with serious people. If you're not serious about moving Peekskill forward, get out of the room or get out of the way and let the rest of us do the work. We've had 6 years of the prior administration running deficit after deficit after deficit to the tune of $18 million. That's a deep hole that the city has to climb out of. And we're not going to climb out of it. We're going to do it on the backs of the taxpayers today, tomorrow, next year, and for several years to come to pay off the debts that they ran up. Now, they ran up the debt. I'm going to clean up the mess. And I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm telling you, we have a problem in the city with the finances. But I want to take serious steps to clean up the mess. And if you're not here to help, and if I do start fixing it, to put me down or to hold me down for the sake of not getting the credit for fixing it, I'm not doing it for the credit. I'm doing it because I sat in my law office and saw somebody try to just build a little extension on his house, and it took him 2 freaking years. And that's not right. So when you bring this city to a slow, to a crawl, to a stop, one building in 6 years, and I challenge anyone to go out and find any new commercial construction building that was constructed in that 6-year period, and you will not find it except for Walmart's. Then there's something's wrong with your city. And I stepped in to get it fixed, and I'm going to get it fixed. Whether it's with this city manager, the next city manager, or the next one after that. Whether it's with this council, whether they run for re-election and I get a majority or I don't get a majority, I'm going to fix the city. I'm going to put good proposals on the table, and if they vote for it, they do, and if they don't, they don't. But I will put forward good ideas for Peekskill, not Republican ideas, not Democratic ideas, Peekskill ideas. Peekskill first.
I think it's so important.
Should I shut up now?
You're right on. We're right on spot. I think it's so important that people say, if I don't do it, nobody else will. And, you're stepping up, and you're a role model. And, whether you want to be or not, I think that's awesome. Who are some of the role models that you look up to? You mentioned Ben Hirsch, excellent man. Who are some other role models that
you get me emotional. I mean, I stepped up. I don't have a family anymore. My kids are grown. My wife passed away. My wife was my role model. She changed my life when I met her. I grew up poor in Peekskill. I grew up on Lincoln Terrace. Nobody had money in Peekskill. White, black, Hispanic, the immigrants. We were all, I was delivering groceries at my uncle's grocery store, McCune's, across the street from Bowman Towers. And all we got were tip money. You get a dime or a quarter, and you're doing well. But I grew up poor. I met a girl from Croton, and so for me it was always go to law school not to help people, to make money, to better yourself economically. Of course. And my wife came in and taught me to calm down, that there's more to life than me, there's more to life than making money, and to turn around and see smell the roses. And she was just a great person. I don't get to talk about her very much, but she was my role model. Definitely. And every time I want to do something, I think of what she would say and what she would do. And she's been the biggest influence on my life, no question about it.
Now, I just saw you have a scholarship fund in her name.
Well, actually, it's not mine. After she passed away, some people came, and a lot of people, when they pass away or a child passes away, the people start a fund or a fund, and they spend a lot of time raising money, hitting their friends up for money. I didn't want to do that. they came to us.
Okay.
People in the community and wanted to set up the Catalina Foundation. They wanted our approval or our blessing.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I don't really like foundations that hit people up for money, but I'm not going to stop you from doing it.
Right.
I just don't want to be an active participant in raising money.
Okay.
You know, I talked to my children. They understood where I was coming from, but the perception was completely the opposite. So we started the foundation. Well, we didn't start the foundation. They started the foundation. I fund it out of my pocket, out of our family.
Right.
My law practice funds it. Now my daughter's my partner, so we collectively we fund it. And you know, we give out 4 scholarships a year. This year we gave out 5.
Wow.
And it's limited to the charities that were closest to my wife's heart. Cancer, obviously the Cancer Society, because that took her from us.
Right.
And the other charities that very specific that she was involved in.
Yeah.
She was involved in the Make-A-Wish Foundation before she had cancer.
Right.
She made people's wishes come true.
Wow.
And you know,
That's awesome.
so when she got sick, it was just a very difficult thing for me to talk about. But I don't really talk about it much.
Okay.
But it's just something that we do in my family to honor her memory.
Excellent. I always try to keep the show positive. I don't like to talk about too many negative things, but you know, there is a heroin epidemic, and what is Peekskill doing to try and help that situation? I know education is probably the biggest thing that
Well,
would help.
obviously the education, we're infiltrating the schools.
Right.
We have a DARE officer who's on the job. He knows a lot of the students by name on a personal basis.
Good.
We've trained our police, our whole police department, and all of our first responders are trained now to administer the drug that counteracts the overdose of heroin.
Okay.
And in fact, our police officers just finished that program about 6 weeks ago, and within a week after the training, so it was still new, 2 officers saved someone's life.
Oh, great.
So they're going to be honored by the city. They're going to be honored in the state senate actually on Wednesday by Senator Murphy.
Nice.
So, but we're doing that. There is a heroin epidemic throughout our society and in Westchester and Putnam counties. Thank God, you know, Peekskill has people that are using heroin. Don't get me wrong, but we have not had any heroin deaths. But the surrounding communities have. Cortland, Croton, Garrison, some of the communities that you would not think have a drug problem.
Yeah, no, I know.
But Peekskill is not. So, you know, sometimes Peekskill gets a black eye for being in the urban area in northern Westchester, but you know, our problem is no greater or no lesser than the surrounding communities that are much more affluent than Peekskill.
Excellent. Well, it's a good thing that, and education, of course, is the #1 thing to try and.
Education is always the key.
Yeah.
Like I say, I grew up right on Lincoln Terrace. There's friends of mine, unfortunately, that didn't make it in life. You know, they went to jail. They have drug problems, and you know, very few of us were able to get our education and carry on. And a lot of some of them went to school later in life after they had worked for a while and were able to pay their own way and get on their feet and start a second career in their 30s and their 40s. So it was but education is the key.
Excellent. What are some things that you try to do in the past 2 years?
As mayor?
Yeah, as mayor, and trying to, you know, stumbling blocks that you really want to try and get done. I know the budget is the big thing.
Well, I mean, the budget, we've made a lot of progress on our budgetary problems that I'm going to outline in our State of the City address. We have turned the tide. The deficits that were run up were averaged $3 million a year for 6 straight years. Our budget deficit in 2014 was only 1.5 million. So we've cut that deficit in half. I'm not happy that we had an operating deficit, but you know, we turned the corner and we headed in the right direction. Increase in our assessed valuation after declining for 7 straight years. Last year we saw a slight uptick, and it's the first positive increase in assessed valuation that we've had in many years. And also on the fund balance, we went from $11 million to $7,500. Last year we closed with about $600,000 in our unrestricted fund balance. Now that's not a lot of money. We should have somewhere between 8 and 10%. So we should have about a $3 or $4 million fund balance. but we have about 500 or 600,000 now, and coming from 7,500, coming from 11 million to 7,500, up to 600,000 in 1 year.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
No.
So we're I feel that we have turned the corner. At least we've changed the direction of the ship,
Yeah.
and it's making a wide swing. It's going to be
Excellent.
hopefully in positive territory in the next year or two.
Good.
And so the finances are one thing. They tell me at City Hall, the planning department in particular, and the Office of Economic Development,
Yep.
that we are making progress very quickly, but it just seems to me like it's so slow.
Yeah.
The pace of government is so slow. So when I burst into their office every afternoon, did the guy from White Plains call? Did the guy from New York City call? Did the guy from Albany call? And they're like, Mayor, calm down. These
Yeah.
things take time. I'm in private law practice, so people that come in and pay us to do a job, they don't want to hear, "Oh, we'll get to it next week. We'll get to
Yeah.
it next month."
Yeah.
They want to go.
Right.
So these are the kind of the frustrating parts of being the mayor. But for the most part, notwithstanding the fact that I'm a minority mayor, I don't have control of the council. The other party does.
Yeah.
But notwithstanding that, I have gotten basically everything that I've wanted.
Yeah.
But don't tell them.
No.
But I've gotten everything I wanted, not
Yeah.
as a political success,
Yeah.
but as a success for Peekskill, because they're not, like I said, they're not Peekskill ideas. They're not Republican or Democratic ideas. They're ideas that are good for Peekskill.
Sure.
So when I want to change Bank Street to two-way traffic, that's good for Peekskill. That's a small thing. When I wanted to have fireworks and have the ball drop on New Year's Eve,
that
that
was
was my idea.
awesome.
It didn't cost the city a dime.
No.
When they said no, we don't have the money for it, I raised the money through private funds.
Yep.
Through the restaurants and people that contributed, because
Yeah.
people want it. It's not a Republican idea or a Democratic idea. It was good for Peekskill. And we put 5,000 people on the street in 10-degree weather.
Oh, it was beautiful.
And so now it is going to be a part of the city's
Cool.
annual events.
Yeah.
Those are good for Peekskill. When we close Division Street off every weekend, not just 2 times a year or 3 times a year, every weekend, when you go downtown on a Sunday evening, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night,
Yep.
and the streets are packed, the restaurants are full, that's good for Peekskill. That's not a Republican crowd or a Democratic crowd.
No.
That's a good Peekskill crowd.
Yep.
And now when people are complaining about parking,
Yeah.
thank you, God. That's a good problem for
Yeah,
Peekskill to have. And I am working on getting a parking garage built somewhere closer to the downtown.
Cool.
But that's like twisting arms too, trying to get grant money for that. But that's a good problem.
Yeah.
And so these are some of the things that we've done these are easy things.
Yeah.
Closing a street off every weekend, every Saturday, every Sunday, that's good. But we're doing big things. We have a restrictive zoning in the downtown for anything over second floor for residential. You can only be an artist. I love the artists. We're an artist community.
Yep.
They bring in a lot of people. It's a great identity marker for Peekskill to have. But to have all residential restrictions, I didn't think that was right. I urged the council, as one of my main legislative goals was to have that changed, to have anybody have residential units. I said that it would open the floodgates to people that have existing buildings to renovate those buildings to get tenants on the second and third floors, even the fourth floor. And I thought it would renew interest in existing buildings. But what it did was it brought this guy named Ken Carney in to build a $15 million project on Main Street on an empty lot that stretches from Main Street to Divon Street that I'm going to highlight in my State of the City address. This project would not have been brought to Peekskill if that law had not been changed. And that's Mr. Carney saying it, not me saying it. I knew that it would open the floodgates to renovations of existing buildings. I didn't know that it would bring in such a big project so fast. So I'm very, very happy and excited about that. And that's a big success that we've had.
Awesome.
Could we do other things? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that we didn't get some of the other things that I proposed, but down on the waterfront, not on public property, on private property. Some guy came in, he wanted to invest $50 million in his own property.
Yeah.
And they tell him you can't build more than 2 stories, 3 stories, 4 stories. And he needed 9 to make the project economically viable.
Right.
I think that's wrong. And I think, like I said before, it's private property. They should be able to build on it what they want. And we're not talking about a 40-story casino and a gambling
Although that
joint.
wouldn't be a bad idea.
Exactly. I mean, you can't say that out loud, though.
No.
But these are things that private investors want to do on their own property. They're not asking for city property to do it on. And but hopefully we'll get a more a proactive council in the future going forward, and we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. Now that new school building on the main road there, how does that working out?
On Washington Street?
Yeah.
The new middle school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the new middle school was needed. I don't know necessarily that it had to be as big and expensive as it is.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in politics or city government at the time. It was built at a time right around the time my wife was going through her cancer and passed away.
Yeah.
But it bonded and it made our school taxes go crazy.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful edifice, though,
Yeah.
and hopefully it's turning out great students. And I'm not criticizing the school district or the people that voted for it. They bonded it. They had to bond. It's
It is what it is now.
It's a beautiful thing.
Right.
It's working out, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like the firehouse. We needed a new central firehouse. The prior administration rolled out a plan for an $20 million gateway building into the city of Peekskill, and it was just a monstrosity of a building. They would have knocked down the entire Crossroads shopping plaza.
Right.
And the cost to build that thing does not reflect the $200,000 a year we would lose by taking Crossroads shopping plaza off the tax rolls.
Right.
And that's a recurring loss of income that everybody has to make up, just to, when I talked about the declining tax base.
Okay.
So I took that plan, and they laughed because I'm not an architect, but I did it with a magic marker.
Right.
I drew a square inside the building plan, and what do the firemen need? We need to house 6 trucks, we need to hire 2 medic cars, and just brought everything down to reality. The bottom line is that I didn't do it. The council approved a building that is 2/3. We cut it by 1/3 in size, and we cut the cost by 40%.
See that?
So now we have
Well,
a
see,
trimmed
now
down
it's
build.
like you said, these people don't understand that what money issues there are. They just want to do things that are pretty or whatever.
Well,
but
everybody wants something that's pretty,
yeah,
but not everybody.
you got to understand.
Can we afford it?
Exactly.
And that's what's going on now. And that's the same thing with the school district. That's the only question I
So
raise.
the segue now is going to be our next show, which will be soon, and hopefully I'll get to.
Are we
cook
out of time
for you.
already?
We're out of time.
Oh
Isn't
wow!
that great?
I told you that would go by pretty
Oh, it
fast.
was awesome. I just want to know, how do you schedule all your time? This is, I know I
I got a
work
new,
70 hours a week, and I'm lucky to get a game of golf in here.
It's
and there,
tough, I like I said, I have no family now. I live alone. My kids are grown.
So that frees up your time.
Frees up my time. I run
You
around on
have your
weekends
daughter
and
is
nights.
helping you at work, which
My
is
daughter's my
great.
law partner.
Excellent.
Although she established her own private practice, so we don't have
Cool.
conflicts.
Right.
And so she's one of the tenants in my building. I have another
Right.
lawyer who's a tenant and a
Awesome.
finance company. So it's a multi-purpose building, and she's, but I get to see her every day.
Excellent. Well, if you run again, good luck. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work you've done. And
Well, thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And within a month or two, I'll get back to you. We'll come back on, right?
And do a cooking show.
And we'll do a cooking
The
show.
mayor loves to eat. That's
All
for
right,
sure.
good. Thanks,
Thank
Frank.
you so much.
This is the Community Show. I'm Victor Margiotta. Thank you for watching. And like I always say, try to get involved. Don't complain about the situation. Do something about it. Thanks.